it's Kathy Clement with Kathy by Design. I am so glad you could join me here today. I am super excited about this project. I'm calling this my Dragonfly Days Tag and Pocket Folio. I created the base myself, and I will be sharing a tutorial showing you how to do that so that you can make your own. This is made for the latest challenge at the Frilly and Funky Challenge blog, which is sponsored by the Funky Junkie Boutique. And I'll have links to the shop below. So this is a craft base. It's a heavyweight craft paper, and it measures 7 1/4 by 5 3/4, which is a really neat size. And I've used lots of mixed media techniques here: paper distressing, stitching, some texture paste and stenciling, paint spatters, all of this sort of thing. But I just wanted to do a quick walkthrough of the album with you so you can kind of see how it functions and then show you what I've used. The paper base is Stamperia Wonderland, which is drop dead gorgeous. I'm not gonna lie, folks, this is one of the most beautiful paper collections I have ever seen. And I even used the cover. It's so beautiful. But you can get that at the Funky Junkie Boutique. So that's where all the papers and the images are from. The spine is burlap that I had in my stash. These are keys that I've picked up at different places along the way. Some of these you can get at the Funky Junkie Boutique, as well as this really beautiful, oops, let me find it, Dragonfly Charm. And I've altered all my metals with Seth Apter baked texture. I used the patina oxide because the color was such a great match. If you've not used this stuff, get your hands on it. I'm telling you, this is a game changer, and it's really cool. You can see it comes with all these chunky pieces in there. I always shake it up a little bit and use it before I emboss, but that's how I changed this metal and all the keys, and it's really cool stuff. So the other Seth Apter that I used is the vintage Beeswax, and I don't know if you can see that on the wings, but they look real. It looks like they've been treated with beeswax, and it is so cool. And that's what this looks like. So you can get both of those at the Funky Junkie Boutique. The flowers I've used are from Little Birdie Crafts, and I used the Wendy Arctic Ice. I used the Martina Arctic Ice. I used Bernice Ocean Mist. These are some of my favorites. And then I used the Rosamond Arctic Ice because I wanted to pick up on these beautiful aqua hues. Burlap string, custom dyed seam binding ribbon, and to do this really neat stenciling, I used texture paste opaque crackle from Ranger, and I used the Tim Holtz mini layering stencil, the Flourish. This is set number 10. So that's that. And let me see, is there anything else? I did ink everything with cracked pistachio and frayed burlap. So I think that's all I need to talk about for there. So let's take a look inside. It's got really neat tag and pocket design, staggered pages, pull-out tags, and then of course it wouldn't be an album for me if it didn't have flips and flaps. Now, I don't show you how to do all of the decorating in the tutorial, but I do show you how to build the base. And just by following through and looking at these pictures and reading the information on my blog, you can probably create this yourself. Oh, this is the other thing I forgot to mention on the front cover. These are so cool. These are index clips. These are Tim Holtz Ideology, and I love those. So the tags are graphic 45 regular tags, and then I covered them using the regular tags and gear dye. And again, if you don't have these, if you like tags, I just think these are essential. I mean, put them on your Christmas list or your birthday list. Maybe Santa or someone will be good to you. I've used these quote chips throughout the book. These are also Tim Holtz. All of this is available in the Funky Junkie Boutique. I've used these little ephemera bits. These, there's bunches of them in here. These are the snippets, so they're tiny ones. And then I also used the layers, the Botanica layers, a little bit in here as well. And then for rub-ons, I've used the remnant rubs, the ones that come in gold and silver, and they really added a lot. And then also, just for words, I used these Tim Holtz clippings stickers. These are wonderful fun. So that's the basics of what I used. Here's another example of how I use that really cool vintage beeswax. Handwritten sentiments, and now we'll just do a quick flip through and you can just look at all of this. Oh yeah, Tim Holtz assemblage. I keep forgetting things. Tim Holtz assemblage. I love these guys. I'm going to get more. These are the mirrored medallions, and look how cool they are. I just strung them with burlap thread and used them throughout. And then to attach my collage pieces and my quotes, I used Distress Collage Medium. I think that covers everything. Oh, and I will tell you, this is a cool thing. This is a cool tip. The cool thing about this texture paste that I used on the cover is that you can color it whatever color you want it to be. So I took about 4 drops of old paper Distress ink re-inker, mixed it into about, I don't know, maybe a quarter-sized blob of this texture paste, and then just mixed it with my palette knife, and that is what created this really beautiful, soft, pale. The spatters on the cover are made with terracotta walnut ink. This stuff has been around forever. A bottle of this will last you a lifetime. I don't even know if you can get it anymore, but I just spritz it on my craft sheet, hit it with a little water to dilute, and then sprinkle with a paintbrush. So now let's just look at the pretties. And stay tuned after this, because there is the tutorial for building the base, and then a little more explanation about the album. So let's go. Okay, so let's see if we can get going on this base. I started with 2 17 by 11 sheets of this, you can see this is huge, craft cardstock. I got this at envelopes.com. Thanks Ginger Ropp of My Sister's Scrapper for introducing me to envelopes.com. And it's called 18-point grocery bag. It's really heavy, really sturdy. It's great for building little folio bases. So what I do, because it's big, and I place it on my scoring tool, and I scored this. The first one I scored at 5 3/4 inches wide. And I just take it down as far as I can, then I flip it over and until I've got a good score line. Then from there I can fold it and fit it in my trimmer. And I use a guillotine trimmer for this paper because otherwise you get little nubbins along the side. So this is that first piece, 17 by 5 3/4. And then I scored this at 7 1/4, 7 3/4, and 15 inches. So that's going to give us this little base with a spine and a little pocket flap here. So 17 inches by 5 3/4, score at 7 1/4, 7 3/4, and 15 inches. And I will have the written directions for this on my blog, and I'll link that below in the description. So this is going to be the cover. Then the next piece that you want to do is going to be, hold on, let me make sure I'm getting the right one. Yep. You're going to take another piece and you're going to score it like we did before, only going to score this one at 5 1/2 inches. So and then you're going to cut it to 11 inches. So 11 inches by 5 1/2 inches. Then you're going to score this at 4 1/2 and 4 7/8. And you're going to put a piece of, I use score tape because I wanted something really strong. And we're going to nest these spines together. Okay, that's the ultimate goal. So that's the next page in this little flip folio. And then the third page, you're going to have another piece of this 5 1/2. So you're going to cut this to also be 11 by 5 1/2, but this time you're going to score it at 5 1/8 and 5 3/8. And then you're going to nest these together. And what I did, I just eyeballed it. I lined it up because what I wanted was to have this staggered edge. So I just took my pencil and marked so that these edges were all pretty much the same. And then I trimmed the long side. The short side stays the same, but I trimmed the long side of each of these so that I got this little staggered edge. And I didn't do the measurements because it's like weird measurements like 3/16 and things like that. Just use your eyeballs and make a pencil mark and trim and you'll be fine. So, do you see how each spine is incrementally thinner than the one before it? And that's going to allow us to nest these spines into one another and create a very, very simple binding. So I'm going to start with the innermost page, and instead of using score tape on this one because I don't have the right width, I'm just going to use some of this really good dries clear adhesive. And I'm going to line this up and try to center it on both sides so that we're straight. And I just nest it in like this. Can you see what I'm doing? And then I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm just going to burnish right along here. And I want to make sure that I don't have glue. This is why I like to use score tape, but I didn't have the right width for this. Let me just make sure my glue is not leaking out. And I'm just going to let that be happy for a minute. Now I'm going to peel my score tape off of this one. And I want to line this up. And this is kind of how I find works the best for me. You can play around and see what works for you. But I bring the cover up over that adhesive. And that way I'm more likely to be somewhat centered. And that went really, really well. So now what you have is this really cool staggered edge base to work from with all these fun little flip pages. And this glue will set up better. It needs a few minutes, but normally I would just set this aside, but I want you to see how this works. Then this will be a pocket. And then this final piece, you're going to have one little piece left over, 11 by 4 1/2, scored in the middle at 5 1/2, and this will be the insert that goes in the pocket. So there you have it. Not that hard. And then I will put, well, you know, this is so simple. You don't need a cutting guide for these pages. This is easy peasy stuff. So let me go. I mean, y'all can figure that out, right? I usually, let me grab my ruler. I like about 1/8 of an inch border. So probably for the cover, I'm going to go a little bit more than 7. See, that's the thing. That's why I don't like to do cutting guides, because sometimes it really is just laying your paper on there and eyeballing it to get, I don't want too wide of a margin. I like really about 1/8 of an inch on each side. So I'll just lay my paper on here and cut it. And the same thing this way. This one will actually be 5 5/8. That one's easy. The width is kind of wonky. But anyway, so that's that. Now you know how to build the base. And this is so simple. And if you wanted to, before you nested all these pages together, you could punch, although this is super heavy, you'd have to have a heavy duty punch. You could do a decorative edge on these pages. You could, you know, whatever. But that's the basics for this. And now I'm going to go play with paper and decorate it up. Then I'll come back and show you some of the neat tricks and flips and pockets and stuff. Okay, you work on this and I'll work on the next. Okay, I'm back, and as you can see, I have been busy. Here's the completed album. I just love the way this turned out. Nature, summer, dragonflies. So that's kind of where I went. To add real elements from nature to your project. So I have feathers. I have little weeds that I've dried. I have little leaves that I picked up. I have these itty bitty teeny tiny pine cones, and those are my natural elements that I added to the card. I gave the folio a burlap binding. I just wrapped it with burlap. I used score tape to attach that. And then I also used Seth's patina oxide to alter these keys. Don't they look old and really cool? And I also did this little dragonfly. Same thing. It just makes them really cool. And this element from the Funky Junkie Boutique, also I used the patina oxide to age it. For the flowers, I dry brushed them with antique linen distress paint, and then I mixed a little walnut ink with a little water and just added the spatters to age. Of course, this is burlap string. Here's the back cover, and this is the piece that I cut from the cover of the paper pad, but I really liked how this looked, and also it saved me paper. Let me see, what else do I need to tell you? The seam binding ribbon I custom dyed with cracked pistachio and a little bit of tumbled glass, and the tumbled glass was paint actually, and I just spritzed that with water and then ran my plain seam binding ribbon through, and then when it was dry I tapped it very lightly with frayed burlap distress ink to create this custom ribbon. So let's go inside. Do I need to, oh hold on, yes, here's one of the little Tim Holtz Ideology clips. I love how that looks, and I brushed that with antique linen paint, and then everything was sponged with cracked pistachio and frayed burlap. So inside, here's how I decided to decorate this. We did this really cool staggered edge, which I love. And to even take that one step further, I created a pocket on each page and then tucked in a graphic 45 tag that I used the regular tag and gears die to cover. And I just left these plain because I thought you could put photos on the back, you could put photos on the front, or you can add journaling. I will tell you, you're going to be surprised at how little embellishing I really did on this project, because the paper is so beautiful. I wanted to let it speak for itself. So this is also Tim Holtz, and I will have a complete supply list for this, and I'll link it to my blog so that you can find it, because I can't possibly remember everything I used. I created this shaped pocket by fussy cutting this element from the paper pad, and then these tags I stamped with archival butterscotch ink, and then I heat embossed them with that same vintage beeswax baked texture, which I love. And throughout the book, I've put quotes about nature, and just torn paper, wrote it in my own handwriting. And again, room for photos on the back here, or journaling, or for you to write more thoughts. It's kind of like a junk journal. And then washi tape borders just to add contrast, created little flap pages. And to do this, you just leave an extra piece here, glue it back behind your panel that you're putting on your book, and then you've got a flap. So I've used elements again from his various stickers. Again, I treated this butterfly with the vintage beeswax baked texture, and then I used some rub-ons, and some of these I put on very incompletely. I wanted them to look kind of old. Look here, like it just looks like foiling. That's just little bits and pieces of rub-ons that I put there. So then this flips, and here I created a pocket. And this is so simple. I just used my Spellbinders nesting circle die to cut the thumb hole, and then glued 3 sides, and you've got an instant pocket. Again, some of this incomplete rub-on. This is from the gold and silver foil, and then little sayings, and then room for whatever you want to do here. Again, the assemblage mirrored medallion, and this is a flip-up page with a little quote. But look at this paper. It just beautiful, just so beautiful. Another tag. This has butterfly wings, room for a photo on the back. And then to line the pocket pages, I used Prima washi tape. And like I said, you'll be able to find all these things linked on my blog at Kathy by Design. More of the incomplete rub-ons, and here another medallion. Here I just took a tiny little scrap of paper and created a shallow pocket for these 2 tags, which are so beautiful. And I tried to keep all the images about nature. Another tag, just beautiful paper. Oh, and I partially die cut the dome to cover so that when it's sticking out of the pocket, it still looks pretty. More rub-ons, another medallion. Here the arrow is pointing to the quote. A single dream is more powerful than 1,000 realities. Nature is the art of God. That's by Dante. And I will tell you that to put these down, I used the vintage collage medium. And I like how it aged the paper, and I deliberately left the brush strokes really rough to add texture. So that is the adhesive I used, and it's also the medium I used to alter my paper. Room for a great big photo. Here's a flip down page. Some elements from Tim's botanical ephemera. Just more of this little foiling. And then here is the pocket on the back. And that little extra piece I turned into a very simple greeting card. Look at the wings. I can't stand how much I love that vintage beeswax embossing powder. And this is just very simply finished on the inside. That tucks into the pocket. And then I used scraps to create this glassine bag, which doubles as a tag. So you could put little treasures and mementos in there. A little key from the Funky Junky Boutique. These are little wood elements. And again, I treated those with the vintage beeswax. Little saying, corrugate, just super simple but really beautiful. So that is my project for Back to Nature for the Funky Junky Boutique. I hope you've enjoyed this short tutorial and video tour. Thank you so much for joining me. I wish you lots of joy and creativity, and I am going to go get my craft on. Thanks. Bye.